Hello tanks and tankettes, welcome to a double feature. These are both viewer submitted games, and we're actually taking a look at a very low tier vehicle for a change. It's the T2 light tank. And appropriately, the T2 is actually a tier 2 vehicle, so it is both a T2 in name and a T2 in tier as well. I said T2 way too many oftentimes during that sentence, really, didn't I? Anyway, it's basically not unlike the Panzer 1C in terms of how it moves. The gun is a little bit different. It's still an autocannon, but the clip on the Panzer 1C is obviously much bigger. But like the Panzer 1C, it goes really fast in a straight line, but the moment you turn, it really bleeds off a lot of speed. Now this is a tier 2 premium light tank. It's pretty cheap, and it's actually one of the more fun low tier premiums that you can get. Not because it's overpowered in any one particular respect. I mean, you look at the FCM Pack 40 for instance, and it's the fact that it has a very good gun and very good view range offset by the terrible mobility. This has got a pretty lackluster gun. It gets regular tier 2 matchmaking, so you can get in tier 4 battles with this thing. And although it is very good in a straight line, on some maps, you know, you get Himmelsdorf or Ruhenberg or some map like that where you've got to make a lot of turns. The speed doesn't really count for that much. But that said, it's still a fun little machine, and it's pretty cheap. Now you'll see here that, and this is the Gungan with class. I'm not sure I approve of the name, but anyway. He's actually using the premium fuel on this thing. And it's worth doing. I mean, you don't play a tier 2 premium to make credits. The kind of minimum tier you'd really do that would be tier 5. The tier 4 and below premium tanks are really there as novelties in one way or another. And the T2 is certainly no exception to that. But it's just an all-round fun little machine because it is so speedy in a straight line. So he's actually giving chase to this enemy T2 light tank. The reticle's a bit derped here. Stops to take aim, sets the guy on fire, and there we go, first kill. Now he doesn't get that many kills in this one, although enough. He gets enough kills. We're actually, I mean, both replays we're going to see here. This is a fairly short replay. They are rather different games. This is more about showing you what you can do with the T2's mobility if you've got your head screwed on, and if you are paying attention to what's going on the map, and you've actually got a decent map to move around on. And Lakeville, it can be a bit closed in, but there are a lot more opportunities to moving around on this side of the map. And it's an encounter battle as well, so the focus is going to be on this side of the map. Now you get 30 average pen with the AP shells, 40 with the APCR shells. But as you can see, that's a DW2. Yeah, that thing has got, I think, 50 all-round armour. And he's, oh, that's a bit close. He's basically not going to pen that really anywhere. I can't remember if the rear armour is also 50 on the DW2, but I have a feeling it might be. But basically the chances of actually penning that in any way, shape or form are very, very limited indeed. With premium ammo you've got a better chance, but just like the Panzer 1C, the offset for this thing being overpowered, and yeah, that Valentine's shooting at you, by the way. Yeah, yes, I think you noticed that. The offset is that because the gun's not very good, there are some targets that you just have to stay away from, that you have to rely on your teammates to deal with. And the fact that it can get tier 4 battles, as this is also a great limiter, because the Panzer 1C, while it can be immensely fun and even, dare I say, overpowered when top tier, when you're in a tier 5 battle in that thing, well, there's not a whole lot you can do. So he's looking for, I think, I'm just going to guess here, I think he's looking for an opportunity, maybe thinking of going back round through the middle. There's 3 artilleries and a T-46 coming through the valley, and he might also be going to maybe go through the valley or intercept the T-46, so, you know, at least check if the T-46 is actually going to be there. But he does actually turn, so, and you can see there the speed bleed off on this thing is quite severe. He decides instead he's just going to whiz straight through the middle, do a bit of shock and awe. We know there was a T-82 defending, all 3 artillery were spotted, there's also a Keyho, but we do seem to be winning this one. I mean, our B1 is, this is the best you can hope for in a B1, but even so he's facing off against a Matilda. and there's 3 artillery and T-82 firing at him, so he's not going to be too gung-ho. And there we go, there's the T-82. who does have the derp gun. You don't notice it immediately, but you will when he's firing later. The phj.wotreplays artillery, actually, I don't know if he was firing at him, but Gungan's not going to hang around to find out. He's just going to whiz right round. He's put some hurt into that birch gun, and the fact that there's 3 artilleries on the enemy team, you know, might be an opportunity for a nice medal here. There we go, just clips the birch gun, right in the gun shield. Basically no armour. And if you can get the unarmoured targets, the gun on this is alright. It's just, there are plenty of targets. You know, you get an AMX-40 or a Matilda and you're a bit stupid. And even then, half of the shots on that landed bounced on that phj artillery. Yes, that one. So the M37 fighter missed. One round is quick in that direction. That's 2 arties killed. Are we keeping track here? 1 left to go. Of the enemy tanks, there's that T-82 and a Matilda left, and the Matilda's being ganged up upon, and he's just going to go for the souffle. That derp T-82 fires and misses. Now he just has to not get hit, because if he gets hit, oh, there we go. I think it's the derp T-82 actually. But if he gets hit by that gun, that would be a one-shot basically. But nope, he gets the final kill, and that's that. So we'll take a quick look at the scores before we actually move on to the next match. It was an Ace Mastery, a Pascucci's medal, and a Tamada Yoshio's medal as well. And this is, you don't see many of these. It's a lesser seen medal in World of Tanks. It's awarded, I'm going to read out the thing. It's awarded to a player who destroys at least 3 SPGs while driving a light tank and survives the battle. The targets must be at least 2 tiers higher than the player's tank. Zircon actually got one of these a few days ago, and I don't know that he'd had many of them before because he didn't recognise it at all. And I think we ended up calling it the Toyota Yamagotchi medal or something silly like that. Just... yeah, it's one of the lesser seen medals, but it's nice. It's like, it's a Pascucci's with honours kind of thing. It's the Pascucci's medal goes along with this very nicely because he got the 3 arty kills, and then he got this medal because they were all 2 tiers higher than him as well. So yes, that was a nice little addition to the medals cabinet. With the 700 damage he did and the 5 kills, that was enough for 1000 base XP, hence the mastery. And he actually made a grand total of 7,727 credits. Yeah, nobody plays these low tier premiums to make money or to grind crews. You just don't really get the XP. You know, this was a good XP battle, but he had to, you know, he was able to get away with some nice things in this battle and take advantage of the enemy team leaving gaps for him to get through, use his speed. So, yeah, no, it's a fun little tank, but you don't buy it because it's a premium. You buy it because it's a fun little tank, and it's certainly one I'd recommend for if it's ever on sale or whatever and you've got a bit of gold. There are worse things you can buy. So, without further ado, we will get on to the next replay, which is a very different affair altogether. So here we are, game number 2, and this is My Name is Puffs. And you know how I mentioned that it doesn't do so good on maps like Himmelsdorf, where you have to make lots of turns? Well, yes, this is indeed Himmelsdorf. So it's not ideal. Now, it's an encounter game, and that means that the focus is actually, although in most encounter games the focus gets thrown over towards the cap, it is still kind of on the hill. And most people see the cap, and especially at low tiers, they think, right, the cap's the important thing, but it isn't necessarily always the case. It depends where the cap is. And sometimes people get that relatively quickly, and other times you see people in tier 10 battles who clearly still haven't mastered that concept. Now I'm going to say right now, My Name is Puffs. He gets quite lucky in parts of this battle. He is maybe not the world's best player. And part of the luck here, yeah, that driving, we'll see more of that. That Panzer IIG does not have his top gun with 95 average pen, because otherwise he would not have bounced any of those shells, not in a T2 light tank. So he's making a hasty exit. I'm not quite sure what his plan was, really, to zoom through the middle like that. And, yeah, that's a wall. The Chiha and the Panzer IIG are engaging, so he's actually going to be able to pop out and put some rounds into this guy. Here we go. Last bit of health. Yes, there we go. Get the kill. So his instincts in some ways are good. Like at some points he does the right thing, but at other points there is some room for improvement. We'll be kind and say it that way. He also does this a lot. He aims third person, and for some shots it kind of bites his ass. And there were also a couple of shots where I wondered why the shells weren't really going in the place he was aiming them at. And I don't think he was using the server-side reticle, or even a mod that gives you server-side and the non-server-side reticle. Now he's been quite cautious with the T-82 because the T-82 can one-shot him. He's presumably had experience of that. And this is a moment where actually, yeah, scoping in a little bit earlier, getting that silhouette and just finishing this guy off. There we go. He does eventually do it. It could have been beneficial, but as it was, it didn't actually turn out to matter. So he's going to whiz around, and the enemy team have decisively won the hill. Like, a lot of this team went towards the cap. They made that mistake. 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 going to the cap is fine, but there must have been a good half dozen that went over that side. Not nearly enough presence on the hill, and in this particular map, having that high ground and then being able to sweep down behind your enemies, it's important because you can end up all squashed into one side of the map and basically being pressed from all sides. It's very, very hard to defend, to come back from that sort of position on Himmelsdorf. So he's knocked out enemy arty. The team's losing on numbers. It's not a runaway loss just yet. Yes, that's a pile of rubble. But it's not particularly great. And again, he really would have benefited from actually going to the sniper view to make those shots all count. But he got in a bit of damage all the same. And there's also Panzer III there. Again, I would have scoped him, but yeah, the Panzer II rather, I said Panzer III, didn't I? The Panzer II has also got a fairly, you know, not terribly good auto cannon, so he is bouncing some of these shots. But if he just stop and aim, it doesn't even get the kill that time. Then he probably could have picked up that kill, picked up that bit of extra damage. So I mentioned the regular AP on this has an average of 30 pen. The APCR has an average of 40. He doesn't have any APCR, and that's going to become important. So we're about 4 minutes in. We're down to 3 tanks on this team and 6 tanks on the enemy team. This is actually better matchmaking than last time. It's only tier 3s and tier 2s. And of the tanks that are on the enemy team, there's only 1 or 2 that could be really problematic. Now, the LTP's got pretty decent frontal armor for a tier 3 tank, and especially for this gun. But if he can get behind an LTP, I'm pretty sure he could, yeah, that's a pillar, actually get the, go through that rear armor all right. The MX-38, on the other hand, is basically impregnable. There aren't many tanks against which the AMX-38 is actually, like, totally immune. It has got decent armor, but for tier 3 there are still plenty of guns around that can hurt it. So he whizzes around just a bit too late to save that Chihha, who actually did a really good job. He went down swinging. He took down 2 enemy tanks with him. But it is now basically just down to mynameispuffs and this Chihha. And this is one of those moments where he makes a correct call. He actually waits for the Chihha to fire, makes a break, and is using his mobility correctly here. The Chihha has got a good gun, but not especially good armor, and not especially good mobility. So he's doing a little bluff here. He's basically banking on the Chihha, thinking that Puffs was going to go around him. And in theory, the Chihha has turned around and is going up the 5 line. So what Puffs is hoping to do is just checking to see that that guy isn't still sitting there. Because at tier 3, it's entirely possible that the guy could just still be sitting there waiting. This is... low tiers are unpredictable like that. Oh, there we go. Now, he takes the guy's tracks, and that's going to be important. The Chihha fires and misses. I don't think he's got his top gun, but it's not going to matter against the T2's armor. And at this point, he's actually able to, takes the track again, he's actually able to carousel this guy. He's just able to go around. And the traverse on this isn't great, but when you're against the turret traverse of a tier 3 tank, in this case the Chihha, it doesn't have the best. When he actually stops to really sin and make sure his reticle is pointing at somewhere flat. And again, scoping in might have helped there a bit for those final shots. But when you're driving around someone like that, you don't actually want to be scoped in. you actually want to be able to see where you're driving. And that can hurt your shots, but it might keep you alive, because if you run into something unexpectedly, that can just be death. But we've come down to this. An AMX-38 versus a T2 Light. Now, the AMX-38 armour, I went and specifically looked this up. It's got 60 frontal armour and 40 on the sides and rear. There is a commander's hatch in the back of the turret with 30. And if you had an above average roll with the AP penetration, you could in theory pen the back of the turret, but you couldn't do it with every single shot. If you fired a whole clip, you might get half of those shells in. So we are now in what I am going to call a Kobayashi Maru situation. If you're not a Star Trek fan, that might not mean much to you, but basically it is an unwinnable situation. He can't hurt this 38. If he had the premium ammo, he might have a chance with the side and rear armour. It would still be entirely dependent on getting high pen rolls, because remember the APCR on this only has 40 average pen and the sides and rear are 40. So most people at this point would just shrug their shoulders, drive away, let the guy cap. But the point of the Kobayashi Maru situation is that it's an unwinnable situation. There's this kind of scenario that Star Trek officers go through, Starfleet officers go through, and one of the kind of famous bits of Captain Kirk's backstory is that he actually beat the scenario. Now, I don't want to really give anything away, but it's going to become rapidly apparent what My Name is Puffs is actually trying to do here. Now, for now, it looks like he's just trying to harass this guy, right? Well, this is all with a purpose. If you can damage the tracks of somebody while they're capping, that counts as damage insofar as you then decap them. So he's actually preventing this guy from capping. But he has had his tracks taken there. That was a lucky shot in that it went in his tracks and it didn't actually damage him. The gun on the 38 is so terrible that he's in no danger of being one-shotted. The gun on the AMX-38 is actually really bad. Like in comparison to the other, the D2, which gets the same gun as the B1, the 47mm 1948 version of that gun, or not 1948, but it's the something 48. I think. I can't remember the exact gun type, but the AMX-38 gets the NAF guns. And I actually really want to like the AMX-38, but unfortunately the guns are just so bad. Like, I like the looks of it almost as much as I like the looks of the AMX-40, but it's got the slow speed of the AMX-40. The armor's kind of bouncy, but it's just the guns are so really awful on that thing. And to put it into context, the premium penetration, I mean, like the AMX-40 doesn't particularly have good firepower either, but the AMX-38's premium pen is only barely better than the regular AP pen of the 75mm, the current 75mm on the AMX-40. The AMX-40 is actually going to get new guns. I hope they do something at some point with the 38 as well, because it's been a very sad little tank for quite a long time. Like, it doesn't have the speed, the armour doesn't really count much for these days, and the gun's just terrible. And with the MX-40 getting buffs, there's really no reason why the 38 doesn't get buffs as well. So because this is an encounter battle, he's actually got more time. The capture process is a lot slower in an encounter battle, and he decides he's going to close the distance on this guy. I'm not quite sure why, but he does have the mobility advantage. And then in this cap circle, crucially, there is this building. So he can just drive around this building, and as long as he's in here, the MX-38 can't cap. So basically, he's playing for a draw. He can't kill the 38. He can't hurt the 38. There is literally no way of doing that. His tank is just not capable of it. And while most people would actually just concede, you know, they would just drive off and let the guy cap, as I've said, My Name is Puffs actually decides that he's not done fighting yet. Now, I have mixed feelings about this, and I'm sure, I don't know what the reaction in the comments is going to be, because I can see both points of view. On the one hand, it is, like, you could say it's mean of him to deprive the other team of a win, but on the other hand, it's not Puffs', it's not his fault that it's come down to this situation where he is in a tank that can't hurt this other tank. That's a really risky move, but he's trying to get the decap points. Oh, that's bad. That's bad. His engine's damaged. He used his repair kit already, so yeah, that was the one shot he could afford to take. But even with a damaged engine, he's probably still more maneuverable than an AMX-38. So, although some people will say, well, this was a bit of a... Oh, there we go. Takes his tracks, gets the decap points. That it might be a bit of a mean kind of a move that he's making here by denying this victory. But on the other hand, he doesn't want to lose. And technically, you know, a draw is a loss for everybody. So, if you can't win... I can kind of see where he's coming from with this. That if you can't win and you have the opportunity to get a draw, then it's kind of like the next best thing. Because drawing is, you know, it's a thing that can happen. It is an option. And the scenario that we're looking at right now is an incredibly unusual one. With one tank, the MX-38, you know, he doesn't have the speed to go after a T2 light, even with a damaged engine. Puffs is easily keeping ahead of this guy. And the 38 clearly is like, just, would you just stop doing that? Would you just let me kill you? Would you just... But Puffs is not done fighting yet. He's not ready to concede this match. He knows he can't get a win. But he can at least deny the enemy team a win as well. So it's like, I can see both points of view. Because it's incredibly annoying when you're on the opposite end of that situation. Where you are in a... you're trying to get the last enemy tank and they've got the maneuverability advantage on you. But on the other hand, why would you just hand somebody a victory when you can at least... Like, the point of playing this game is to win, and in this case it's the next best thing to winning. It's his only option. The only advantage he has here is his maneuverability. He can't hurt that 38. He can only track the guy. And even if he had prem ammo, even if the 38 was so obliging as to be sitting there with the back of his turret pointed at him, even then his prem ammo would still... Some of it would still bounce on that weaker commander's hatch, which is 30 mil. Some of the prem ammo would probably roll low enough to still bounce on that. And it would require a couple of clips to get through the full health of the AMX-38. So there are very few scenarios in which an AMX-38 would come up against a tank that it just that can't hurt it at all. And this just happens to have been one of them. So yeah, it is. It's full on Kobayashi Maru, and My Name Is Puffs is, whether knowingly or unknowingly, doing his best Captain Kirk impression. Now, I actually have. I thought I might need it, but, I mean, we're nearly done now. It's the last 30 seconds. I actually had a copy of the Gazette on standby just in case I felt like I was going to run out of things to say. But, no, I mean, we've done it. We went from 11 minutes to go with 3 tanks left and, 6 on the enemy team, and... He hung on and he got the last couple of kills. He took down 5 of those. Not all 5, but he got a couple of those kills. And he just kept swinging. He refused to give in. He refused to concede defeat. And although his driving needs some work, you know, his situational awareness maybe needs some work, I can kind of respect it even so. Some people are going to disagree with it, but I can kind of respect it. So, he got a Defender medal out of that. He actually did the best damage on his team. He got the most kills on his team. That MX-38 had to have been absolutely cursing at the end of that, because that turned out to be a Kobayashi Maru scenario for him as well. But Puffs had all the control because he had all of the mobility. And even with a damaged engine, he could still comfortably get around that building as opposed to an MX-38. So there we go. 2 very, very... very different replays. Like, I really couldn't think of 2 more different replays to show, and I nearly didn't show this one. I nearly thought, well, some people are gonna find this extremely disagreeable that he then took this decision, but no, like I said, I can see why he did it. He was unwilling to, like, when there was a chance to not lose, for it to be an outright defeat, he took it. And actually, because he got the Defender medal, he actually got the same amount of XP as if it had been a win, and also an Ace Mastery. So, yeah, some people are not going to agree with that, but I say, well, kudos to you all the same, my name is Puffs. That was an interesting match and an interesting scenario. It's not one that you're likely to see very often. The vast majority of draws do not happen for reasons of that particular nature. They're usually for totally different reasons, and that just came down to a war of nerves really at the end there, and he took some risks and got lucky in places, but still it was quite gripping, I think. So there you go, the T2 Lite. I think it's a pretty decent little low tier tank. As I've said, if it's ever on sale and you've got a bit of gold, it's not the worst thing in the world to get. I think you even sometimes get it with new account invite codes, so if you can get one of those, it's worth grabbing. So there we are. If you enjoyed these replays, you can do the usual things. You can leave any comments below, you can hit the like button, you can subscribe to my channel, and as always, stay tuned for more.